Hey guys, welcome back to the Gears and Tool channel where we do it-yourself projects and product reviews just like this one. If you're new to the channel, definitely hit that subscribe button and the bell notification below so you get to see all my upcoming videos. Today we're going to try and answer the question, is the premium that Leatherman demands for their tools worth it over a Chinese knockoff? I was careful not to buy an exact replica of the Leatherman Wave or Leatherman Surge because, you know, I don't support companies that just try to put fraudulent products and stuff out there. But you know, the patent on the design for the Leatherman Wave has expired, and that does open it up to have other manufacturers make similar products with similar features. And this is a good and a bad thing. The good thing is, you know, when the patent's in place, Leatherman gets to reap the benefit of that by charging a little bit of a premium for something that they invented, innovative, or you know, brought some value to the table by their engineering. The benefit to the customer, of course, is when the patent runs out, the design is available for other companies to continue innovating or just reduce the cost of production on, thus bringing a less expensive product that does something similar to the marketplace. Now, this multi-tool is a unbranded 15-in-1 multi-tool. I'll provide a link in the description below, but it was just under $20, which, considering it's similar in size and weight to the Wave, which is $100, it looks like a pretty appealing deal. So we're going to dive into the features of this tool and the quality and build construction and kind of give you guys an inside look on if it's even worth the $20 or if you're just paying for garbage. So for this video, we're going to quickly look at this tool, what all the features are, what come in the box when you order it. And then we're going to look at the similarities to the Leatherman Wave and the Leatherman Surge. And then some of the differences that make the Leatherman Wave and Leatherman Surge a more premium product that might be worth the extra money. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the new Chinese 15-in-1 tool. Okay, so this Chinese-made multi-tool comes in this relatively unremarkable box. I mean, really, it's just, you know, basically the cheapest thing you can get. And then inside, the tool, when it's shipped, comes with this nylon sheath, which actually isn't a terrible sheath. It's relatively minimalistic. It does have a belt loop. It is Velcro, but, you know, for the price point, you know, that's to be expected. I prefer a snap clip on the sheath, but overall it is a nice and small compact sheath. There's no bits or any other features included in the box. It's just the sheath and the tool. And the size and weight of this tool is very similar to the Leatherman Wave. It's 4.2 inches long, 1.5 inches wide, and 0.77 inches thick, which, you know, that's within 10% in every dimension to the Leatherman Wave. And the weight of this tool comes in at 8.7 ounces, which is 0.2 ounces more than the Leatherman Wave. Looking at the outside tools, we have a 3.1 inch long 420 steel blade, which is you know, the same as the 420 HC steel that comes on the Leatherman. Now, I don't know if it's been heat treated. Also, since it's from China, I really don't know if that's the actual material, but they're claiming it's the 420 steel that you find on the Leatherman. So nice size blade, a little bit longer than the Leatherman Wave, which is kind of nice. And then on this side, you have a pair of scissors, which I tested on some paracord earlier, and these scissors actually work pretty well, at least when they're new. I can't really say how long they'll last, but they do work pretty well. They snip right through the paracord, no problem. You have a little bit of a nub on the bottom, which they claim is kind of a safety feature for, you know, if you're cutting bandages and stuff like that off. So really nice pair of scissors on this $20 multi-tool. And we'll kind of look at the scissors compared to the Surge, but I mean, it's really kind of an exact ripoff. But we'll get into those similarities in just a bit. On this side, we have a file, which is just a pretty generic cross-cut file on both sides. I don't like the hole in the side of the file because if you're filing something, it's likely to get, you know, pushed through there and stuck. So it kind of limits the useful area of the file itself. There is no cross-cut on the top or bottom of the file itself, so you won't be able to do any slot cutting or anything like that with this file, which is a little bit of a disappointment. And then on the other side of the tool, the final outside tool, is this saw. And this saw is a relatively long, nice looking saw, but I am going to point out that it is not properly tapered at the spine, which means that this saw is probably going to bind up on you, especially if you're trying to cut through sappy wood. Typically, a saw needs to be narrower at the top than it is at the bottom. That way, the saw blade is narrower than the cut that's being cut through, making it pass through the material easier as you work through a branch or a piece of wood. Now, opening it up, we have the pliers, and these are actually reasonably nice pliers. The tool does not flex a lot when you really squeeze on it, but as we'll get into in a little bit, you'll notice there are some very Leatherman-like features about these pliers. You'll notice that the removable wire cutters and squared off needle nose pliers are very much inspired from the Leatherman Surge. And we'll do some side-by-side comparisons in just a second. Also, the pliers are spring-loaded, which is a nice touch. That's something I really liked about the Leatherman Sidekick and the Leatherman Wingman that the Wave and Surge don't have. So it does have a pair of spring-loaded pliers, which was a nice surprise. On the inside of the left-hand handle, we have an awl, which looks very serviceable. And we have a Phillips drive screwdriver, which has a relatively nice sized shank on it. It does not have a bit exchanger or anything like that, but you know, for a $20 multi-tool, you can't really complain. All the tools on this multi-tool are locking with the back lever bar, just like the Leatherman Surge or Leatherman Wave. On the other handle, we have a cord cutter slash box opener, a cap lifter slash medium screwdriver, and a can opener slash small screwdriver. All in all, a relatively nice tool set for a $20 multi-tool. The fit and finish on this tool are okay. You'll notice that some of the details, like the saw, aren't as nice as the Leatherman, and the outside casing here seems to be made of a little bit thinner material. You'll notice that the handles do flex a little bit, but for a $20 multi-tool, it's surprisingly good. So I'm going to go ahead and get the Leathermans on the table so we can compare the similarities and differences that this tool has compared to them. So today we will be comparing this tool to the Leatherman Wave and Leatherman Surge, because this tool most closely resembles the size and weight of the Wave, but definitely steals some features from the Surge. The first thing I want to point out are these capture washers on the exterior tools. They are literally the exact same as the Leatherman Surge capture washers. Maybe a little bit different size, but I mean, they have the beveled edges. They serve the exact same function. It's just a straight up rip-off, guys. The next thing I want to look at is the very end of these tools. You'll notice that the sheet metal is bent in the exact same configuration around the exterior blades and the plier heads. It even goes so far as to having the same type of rivet in the back of the handle. So you can definitely tell that this Chinese manufacturer looked at the Leatherman product and took a lot of design elements. I thought it was kind of ironic. I was looking at the Amazon reviews for this product, and there were several comments in there, clearly kind of the fake comment bots, saying, oh, this tool is very well engineered, yada, yada, yada. And yeah, that's because they ripped off a very well engineered product. They didn't engineer it themselves, of course. They just made some variations to an existing design. One of the differences is it does have the skeletonized sides, which I think is kind of a cool little touch. It'd be cool if Leatherman kind of did that. I know they have the Skeletal products, but under heavier duty ones, they don't really do that. So maybe Leatherman should steal some ideas back, right? I mentioned earlier how similar the plier heads were to the Leatherman Surge, so let's get them out real quick. Now the pliers on the $20 Chinese tool are spring-loaded, where the Leatherman Surge is not, but the Leatherman Surge pliers work great. But look at the similarities, guys. They both have removable wire cutters, and the Chinese company is basically an exact copy. I think the size is slightly smaller on the Chinese version, but even the shape of the wire cutters is unapologetically the same. They didn't even bother to take the concept of removable wire cutters and make it their own, kind of like the Gerber company did with the center drive. You can see these cutters are triangular. They claim that you can rotate these cutters to expose new cutting surfaces if you ever damage an edge. The Chinese knockoff, they just straight up said, okay, that looks good, let's copy it. One of the other features that the Chinese tool copied is the Leatherman Surge scissors. The spring mechanism is exactly the same, even down to the little decant holes on the back side of the spring. The only difference between this pair of scissors and the Surges is they do offer a little bit of a nub on the bottom, which they claim is for safety, which I'm sure they just took from another multi-tool design. The similarities even go down to where it's placed on the handle. It's on the same side of the tool that has the knife blade. So you can see where some of this is going beyond just similarities and really going into just straight up copying a competitor's product. Another area that the Chinese product is really similar to the Leatherman Surge is the back lock, even down to the idea of having a decant where the thumb rests for unlocking and locking the tool. So definitely a lot of features copied from the Leatherman Surge. If you look at the ends here, you can see that the Leatherman Surge does have a beefier set of plier heads. But just interestingly, if you look on the interior of the tool, you'll see there's a bent piece of metal in a very similar place on both tools. Again, unapologetically a straight copy from Leatherman. So you looked at what some of the similarities between the Chinese tool and the Leatherman tools are. What are some of the differences? One of the biggest differences is on this tool, you only have one knife blade. which is kind of a sheep's foot design, which works fine. We're both the Leatherman Wave and the Leatherman Surge, both a plain edge knife blade and a serrated edge blade, which is nice because sometimes you just need to thrash on something or have something with really aggressive cutting edge, which the serrated edge knife does very well. Another difference is the Chinese tool does not have the exchangeable bit drivers that Leatherman and other premium multi-tool manufacturers have. It's just a plain bit driver, which if you damage the tip, isn't going to be able to be replaced, which if you're only paying $20 for a multi-tool, you'd probably just buy a whole new tool. The bit kits for the Leathermans can be $20 in themselves. So that does limit the versatility of this tool. If you need a specific bit, like a Torx bit or something like that, there's no way to incorporate it into this design. Another difference of the Chinese tool versus the Leatherman product is the Leatherman Wave and Surge both have the ability to add a pocket clip, which the Chinese product does not. So one of the benefits of buying a Leatherman or other premium multi-tool product is you're buying into their system. They're going to offer you features and support that you can't get with the Chinese knockoff. Things like pocket clips, lanyard clips, expandable bit drivers, features like that that can enhance the usability of a tool, especially if you work in a specific industry. So that being said, what's my takeaway on this? Well, honestly guys, I bought this tool because it looked as close as possible to the other Leatherman products I had without being an exact copy. And it was under 20 bucks. And I was prepared to bash on this thing. I was prepared to tell you that this thing was a piece of garbage and then never buy one. And for $20, I'm actually pleasantly surprised. It does everything that it's advertised to do relatively well. I can't vouch for things like the heat treatment on the knife blade. It isn't as strong as the Wave or Surge are. It's made of a little bit thinner materials and stuff, but honestly, it does everything it's advertised to do. It's obviously not quite as nice of an implementation as like what Leatherman has done with theirs, since they're not the original designers. They're just kind of taking ideas and recycling them. For $20 is a pretty good buy, especially if you're not going to be using it every single day. Maybe it's going to be in the glove box of your car or in your emergency kit as a backup tool. At that price point, it could be a really good option because then you have the money to spend the rest of your kit in emergency preparations. That being said, I'm not a big fan of companies that clearly steal ideas from other companies such as Leatherman, who have spent the time, energy, and engineering to develop new innovative products. If we don't support companies like Leatherman, they're not going to be motivated to come up with new innovative products. So my personal request is, it's okay to buy something like this. It's actually a pretty good option for $20. But make sure you buy one of the Leatherman products for your daily carry and reserve something like this for a backup kit and stuff like that. That way Leatherman's still supported and they're going to continue to put out great products, but you have some of the cost savings that we're rightfully afforded as consumers for when the patents run out on a product and other manufacturers are allowed to compete for the bottom dollar. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, hit that like button below. It helps the channel out a lot. And hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you can see my other reviews on new Leatherman products and how they stack up against their competition. Cheers.